Hey everyone, I'm Casey, and in this video I'm going to be talking about why I bought gold and why I think it's a really great investment for the short to medium term and also the long term as well. This is one of the stocks that I'm planning on holding for years to come. I think it's going to be really influential in the next year or two, but especially long term as well, and I'm going to dive into all the reasons why. So first and foremost, the biggest reason has to do with inflation. So if you're not familiar with inflation, very simply, it's the devaluing of currency when there is more of it being made. So if you're not familiar with what the Federal Reserve has been doing or fiscal policy, there's obviously been a lot of money being printed and being created for the stimulus checks, for the PPP, for all these great programs that have been really influential and needed, but the negative side effect of them is that they are going to create inflation. Now, added to that, the Federal Reserve recently has came out and said that they actually want to increase inflation. They want to increase inflation in the short to medium term to average out inflation for the longer term to be around 2%. Now, an inflation rate of 2% is considered healthy in an economy and it's considered good. So that's not necessarily a bad thing what the Fed is doing. Now, some people disagree with that, and that's not necessarily what the Fed should be doing according to some people. I personally think that it's a very unique situation with COVID going on, and that money does need to be allocated to these programs to help small businesses and the people being hurt during this pandemic. That aside, the reason why it's going to help gold is when inflation goes up, currency values go down, and consider that the dollar is still a huge currency in the world. The US dollar has been going down, and with the Fed announcing this plan, it's going, in my opinion, to continue to go down, and since inflation is for a fact going to be going up. The Fed has literally said they want to do it, and that drives the price of gold up. That's not necessarily up for discussion, it's just the way the fundamentals work. And that is the reason why in the last 6 to 8 months or so, gold has been going up and up. In the last 3 months, it's gone around 30% or so up, and I don't necessarily see that stopping anytime soon in the grand scheme of things. Now, the way I bought into gold was I bought the ticker symbol GLD. It is by far, in my opinion, the best way to buy into gold because it's a stock, it's an ETF that tracks the spot price of gold. You don't have to go through the trouble and hassle of buying actual real gold. It does the same exact thing, and if you're already trading stocks, it's super easy. I bought into gold as equity. I bought into that stock around $172 or so, and then somewhat recently I actually got an option for an expiration of January 2022 at a strike price of 190. Gold, or GLD I should say, was there just a handful of weeks ago, so I'm really confident it will be way past that by that time. Now, back to more reasons of why I think it's a great investment. As I said, for the short, medium term, but also the long term. Interest rates are really low right now, thanks to the Fed lowering them to help the economy. That's caused bonds to go down a lot and treasury bills to go down a lot as well. So people are switching to gold because those are so low, plus the worry that the dollar value may be going down has just a culminating effect of driving up the price of gold. A few other positive benefits to gold has been the uncertainty with the election coming up. I don't think that has necessarily been factored into the price of gold. I think that's going to be more around the election, like the month or two leading up to it, and then also initially after the election. I think if there's a negative response in the market to whoever gets elected president in the United States, I think there's going to be a spike in gold no matter what, because it's a safe haven. Another positive aspect I wanted to mention, just because if you have been looking into gold news at all, I'm sure you've heard that Warren Buffett bought into the ticker symbol gold. It's Barrick Gold, it's a mining company, and Warren forever has voiced his distrust and his dislike for the metal. He really doesn't think it's as good an investment as investing into a company or anything like that. And so this was him investing into a company, right? He's not necessarily just buying gold, but it was a huge shift in his thinking, and goes to show being one of the greatest investors of all time, that if he's thinking gold prices are going to continue to go up, there's a pretty good chance that he's seeing all these other things that I've been mentioning and a lot of people are seeing, which is driving the gold price up and probably going to continue to do so. So another aspect that's going to drive gold up as well is the tensions with China. Sparking the kind of trade war that's been on and off for a while now, and with everything that's going on with COVID and those rocky relations, and we don't really know what those are going to be like depending on who gets elected for president, but the relations are not that good, and tensions with the second biggest economy in the world, with us, the biggest economy, is again going to drive prices of gold higher because it's a safe haven. People don't have to worry about the economy or currency values as much if they just buy into gold. Now, lastly, one of the positive aspects I wanted to mention before I just mention some of the negative or counter arguments to gold, because I don't want to just have this be a one-sided video, although I firmly believe with all the positive sides, I figured I should still mention some counters. But the last positive one is that the price targets of gold are pretty high, and a lot of analysts and investment firms are saying that the price of gold is going to rise. So that's on the technical side of things, very positive as well. Credit Suisse, for instance, believes there's going to be a little more consolidation, which is basically mean the price is going to be flat for a little bit of time, but they think it's going to reach around 2,700. To give some reference, the actual price of gold has been around the 1900s and 2000 briefly. So that's a huge increase, and that's probably in like the kind of 12-month range, but still 30% in a year, or close to 30%, is pretty damn high. So I could pull up much more price targets too, and I probably will as I'm talking, but needless to say, a lot of analysts and investment firms think it's going to go higher, which is again a positive catalyst and shows that the technical fundamental side of things is working towards higher prices as well. So now to some of the negative kind of counter arguments. So a lot of people, to counter the inflation side of things, have been saying that inflation's not going to be as bad as everyone thinks. And that is still a good thing, right? If you are investing in the stock market, you should not be putting all of your money into one thing. You should at least have some hedges. And if you are investing in the gold, you should still definitely be invested in some other equities as well. So that helps out those equities. And gold, may not be push as inflation as much. However, what I would say to that counter argument is that the Federal Reserve, has literally said they are trying to increase inflation. So there are some people that may say, oh, once it averages out to 2%, that's a good thing, but you can't deny the fact that it's going to happen in the short to medium term, even if overall long term it's not going to be that bad. So I think that's still going to benefit. Some of the other big counter arguments I've heard, which definitely have some merit, is, and this was a comment Warren Buffett made for years of why he didn't like gold, was that, it's not a company, it doesn't pay dividends, it's not growing, it's literally just sits there and doesn't really add any value, right? Gold is used in some things, like it's used in electronics and things like that, but it's mainly just a hard asset that just sits there. So that was kind of the argument, as I mentioned, Warren made for a long time, and it has some merit, so that's one of the counter arguments. Another one being, me mentioning the dollar currency's value going down, and other world currencies going down as well with inflation, not only in the US, but in Europe and other places in the world. So the counter argument to that is people saying that the dollar may be going down right now, which is true, and it may in the short to medium term, but overall long term it's going to be just fine. And I agree with that. But I also think that if you look at the long-term period of gold and the dollar is always going to go down. What's important about the dollar is its relative strength to other currencies, because currencies are over time always going to be devalued because inflation is just always going to happen. Consumer prices are always going to go up, even if inflation is at a healthy level of 2%. That 2% compounded annually ends up being a lot. So I would say that I absolutely agree that in the long term, the dollar relative to other countries is going to be just fine. But I do think that it's going to benefit gold because in the next handful of years, the US may not be as strong as others. And that's completely skeptical because we're going to have to see how everyone recovers from COVID. But even if it recovers very strongly, which I think it will too, I think gold is still going to be considered a safe haven by a lot of people who have been spooked by inflation. So I could go on and on about many of these positive benefits and the counter arguments and my thoughts about them and make this video much, much longer. And if anyone's interested, I can definitely make some follow-up videos on specific aspects of gold, specific news about it. So definitely comment down below if there's anything you would like to hear, anything you disagree with, agree with, love to chat about it. You know, I'm all ears, and this is just my opinion, and I'm definitely not closed-minded to others. And as I mentioned, I am not a financial advisor, so don't buy gold just off of my recommendation. It's just something I believe in, and definitely do your own due diligence and your own research if you plan on buying gold or anything for that matter. Definitely do that. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you'd like to see future videos similar to this about stocks and just things in the stock market in general. So thank you so much for watching. I'm really excited to continue to make videos as frequently as I can, and thanks so much for watching.